from Luke 24. Now, that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were walking with each other about they were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus acted as if he were going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, and they recognized him. He took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Word of God. Dear Lord, help me in this moment. We need you for this message. Thank you for this opportunity. Amen. Morning. So my question to you is, and it's a real question, would you recognize Jesus? Would you recognize Jesus if Jesus walked in here and sat down? You know, I'm not aware, and I'm not a biblical scholar by any means, but I'm not aware of any real authentic descriptions that would help us know that it's Jesus if Jesus walked in. People have created their images, but I'm not sure we would. And so I'm asking you, would you recognize Jesus? Hang on just a second. I'm supposed to turn that phone off, wasn't I, Austin? I'm sorry. Apologize. This is my grandma. Hang on just one second. Grammy? Yeah, make it quick. How are you doing? Okay? Well, I am in the middle of giving a sermon. Yes, a sermon. They asked me to do the sermon. I know, it's crazy. It's would you recognize Jesus? Yes, I know. Well, I probably need to go because they're going to ask for a refund here pretty quickly if there are funds here, if I don't get this over with and get on the show. Oh, why did I call? I called you last night because I wanted to tell you about this experience we had. Tish and I were at a party. Oh, yes, of course we masked up. Yes. But we're at this party with the Hulls and the Kennedys and having a good time. And there was this gentleman in the room that I didn't recognize. I asked Tish, she didn't recognize. Nobody knew who this person was. What did he look like? No, he didn't look like Bill Him for sure. Tish said he was much easier on the eyes. So, you're not going to believe what happened though. As the party were having a good time, he turns water into wine. Yes, water into wine. Yes, I've been sleeping plenty. Yes, I'm eating right. Yes, I'm taking my medicine. I don't take medicine. What are you talking about? Okay. You get the drift that, she thinks I'm crazy. I think I experienced Jesus and she thinks I'm crazy. Let's take just imagine yourself right now. We're not here. We're going to move over to the river, Napa Flats. It's a good little restaurant. And let's just sit down together and we're ordering. And I would recommend the pizza. It's excellent. And you just smell the bread. You smell it in there. Yeah, it's very nice. And imagine we're just having a good time. We're having a conversation. And all of a sudden we hear a ruckus, a little commotion over in the corner of the restaurant. And we're trying to continue our conversation, but we can't help it. It just gets louder and louder. And we look out, and there's something on the river out there. The water's up. So we go, we look. There's somebody out in the river. They're walking on the water out there. So obviously somebody in the group picks up the phone. They jump on Facebook. You're not going to believe what I saw. Somebody's walking on the water on the Arkansas River. Oh my gosh. I can't believe somebody would say that to me. I'm going to unfriend them. They're going to think you're crazy. It's fake news, right? Or better yet, we're all down at the park, at the gathering place. And we're sitting down there, you know where that castle is. Those things are so cool. And kids are out there playing. And all of a sudden somebody comes up, an adult, and he starts talking to your child. And you're a little concerned here. And all of a sudden, your child takes the glasses off, and that adult reaches down, grabs some dirt, spits in it, gets it up, rubs it in his eye. Now, what are you going to do? Welfare check? Call the police? But these are the stories that we heard about and that the Bible teaches us. These stories of Jesus, these miracles. I'm wondering, and let me do this for you. Let's go back to the script for just a minute, because, I'm asking you, would you recognize Jesus? But in this passage that we just read, disciples are walking along, and you have to understand the context. It's right after Jesus has been crucified. They've gone to the tomb. The rock's removed. Jesus is gone, and these disciples are walking along, talking, and Jesus comes up to them, and they don't even recognize Jesus. And as you read on, I cut out some of it, but Jesus basically, in my interpretation, kind of scolds them. Have you not seen what's happened? And only when they sit down to break bread are their eyes open to Jesus. So I got to thinking about this a little bit more. If the disciples wouldn't recognize him, how would we recognize Jesus? So I did some research, lots of research out there on the internet. And then I happened to remember one of my, an authority, great authority. In fact, I was raised with this authority. This authority is Johnny Cash. When I was growing up, my mom would, almost every single morning, would put on my little record player, the album of Johnny Cash, and she would always play Orange Blossom Special. And if you haven't heard it, you need to listen to it. It's a great way to wake up. But I started looking at Johnny Cash, and I remember Johnny Cash wrote a song. Would you recognize Jesus? If you've never fed the hungry or given clothes to the poor, if you've never helped the stranger who came knocking on the door, if you forgot to send some flowers to sick and shut-in friend, well, you ain't helping none of these, then you ain't helping him. If you've ever seen some children playing ball behind the school, if you've ever watched an old man plowing ground behind mule, if you've ever stopped and listened when you could not hear a sound, then brother, you have met him, because Jesus gets around. Would you recognize Jesus if you met him face to face? Or would you wonder if he's just another one you could not place? You may not find him coming in a chariot of the Lord. Jesus could be riding in a 49 Ford. You can ask him you can find him in your mama's eyes or in your daddy's face. You can find him in the mountains, downtown, or by the sea. And brother, here's hoping someone can find him and you and me. Would you recognize Jesus if you met him face to face? So I raise this because it's possible my thinking has always been wrong on this point. Let me share an example. So I was in Philadelphia a few years ago in a hearing. And I had a flight to catch so I could get home. And at that point, that was pre-pandemic, I traveled a lot, not every week, pretty much almost every week. Travel, and it was important to try to get home, see the family. So this hearing had gone longer than expected, and I was watching the watch because I knew time was getting tight and I might not make my flight. And all of a sudden we broke and I went bolting out of there. I went flying down the stairs and I'm looking for a place where I can catch a taxi because you can't just hail them. They go to certain designated stations or you got to find a hotel. They won't just stop for you on the street anymore like they used to. So I'm hustling around going where I think I'm supposed to be and I come up on a corner and there's a lady and she's over at the corner and she's asking for money. And she asked me for money. I don't remember how much. For some reason, $10 jumps into my mind, but I'm not sure if that's right. But I kind of just discard it. I'm too busy. I don't have time. Light changes, and I'm able to get across the traffic, and I keep looking for this place. 5 minutes go by probably or more, and I'm panic setting in. And I circle back somehow, and I find myself, at least I think it's at the same corner. But she's there. And if she's there at another corner, then this is really somebody talking to me. But she's there. And this time, instead of asking me for money, she asked me, "Can I help you?" I said, well, I felt terrible. I said, well, I'm trying to find this place where you can catch a cab. And she said, well, it's just, she got up, she pointed, and she said, it's just right down there. Just go around that corner there. So when she needed my help, I wasn't there. But when I needed her help, she was there. Mother Teresa says that in the poor, we meet Jesus in his most distressing disguises. Another example. My son Eli, we dropped him off at college last Wednesday, and that's obviously emotional, and this is the first weekend, without him. And a few weeks ago, he had an experience. I'm not sure where it came from, because my example of what I did on that street corner, I've done that a number of times, and Eli's gotten on to me. He's like, oh, Dad, just give him something. But he was at Walmart, driving into the parking lot at Walmart, and there's a family out on the corner, not in the parking lot of Walmart, but when you're coming in there's a family, a husband and wife look like, and 4 kids, 4 little bitty kids. And they had a sign, needing help. He pulls up to them and he says, look, meet me at the front of Walmart. They come into the Walmart and he says, what do you need? And they said, we need some Pampers and a couple other things. And so he took around and got what they needed and said, they didn't ask for it, but he thought they need some food too. So he picked up a couple loaves of bread and some peanut butter and took it and checked it out. Spent his money, not my money, his money to do that. Because he saw something that needed. He recognized something. And maybe they recognized something too, that we see it in each other. You think about the opportunities, the backpack brigade, like you just mentioned. Incredible that people need, a lot of people need, and that this church is able to do that. But I suspect that there's a far more that we're receiving than we're giving. When we do that, we feel incredibly good about being able to do that to help somebody else. Think about Family Promise with the church and those families that don't have a home. Families. The one beautiful thing that separates that organization is that they bring families together. A lot of homeless that have a family, they have to go different directions. Husband has to stay in a different place, and the mom and the kids can stay somewhere else depending on their age. But they don't get to stay together. Family Promise brings them together, and this church has participated in that with meals and people living here. It's incredible. What I realized as I was thinking about this, and my partner mentioned to me the other day, is that we all really, at times in our life, are hanging on by a thread. There are moments where we are just barely hanging on. And it's those moments that we can have interactions with others that can change the course of our life. We seem so busy and wrapped up that we really can't. We're too busy to try to help like I was on that corner, and it was ridiculous. But we are hanging on by a thread at times. And so, like Johnny Cash said, listen. If you listen. And what I'm wondering is if we learn to listen differently. What do I mean? I mean a type of listening that sets the ego aside, that sets your agenda aside when you're with somebody else and you really want to hear them. Check all that stuff and just listen. You're not there to fix it. You're not there to tell them like I do. And I'm speaking to you guys, but I'm really speaking to myself, talking in the mirror here. I have to tell myself this a lot. But when you listen without trying to fix them or trying to tell them about what you did that was a similar experience so that you change the conversation, you're not really listening to them anymore. But if you listen for the feelings and you identify those feelings for them, you're going to help them. You're going to help them work through this. Sometimes you may identify a feeling that must make you angry. And you may be wrong. And that's okay. Even if they reject it, you're helping them clarify where they need to go. But if you listen and you share the feelings, you identify the feelings, you can take them to a different level so that they're heard. And you know what? When you're really listening, the other person feels held, like you're holding them. It's a genuine listening. And if we all listen just a little bit more, and we're intentional about it, we might just, you, me, we might just experience Jesus. And they might too.